Okay, Shavua Tov. We're starting Masechet Sanhedrin. We're starting the fifth parak. Bez Hashem, with Hashem's help, which should be Matzliach. The fifth parak picks up directly after the fourth parak. So last parak that we were learning discussed the beginning of a court case of capital punishment, and we have the witnesses, and we warn the witnesses, you better tell the truth, right? Otherwise, there's big problems. Killing a life is a big issue. We told the person who is being charged with the crime that if you're innocent, you have nothing to worry about. And we had a lot of halachos about how to start the case. So we're continuing in how now the judges, what questions the judges are actually asking the witnesses. Okay, very important that in Judaism, right, in Sanhedrin, in dealing with capital punishment in any court cases, we don't really look at what's called circumstantial evidence, right? Things that seem to support a certain idea. Evidence in Bedin was witness testimony. So you have to be very, very clear that you're getting a really good testimony. So we're going to see questions that they had to ask. So starts the Mishnah. Hayu Botkin, they would check out the witnesses. We're going to see it's one at a time, right? The more prominent witness goes first. Hayu Botkin Otan Besheva Hakirot. We're going to be asking 7 investigative questions. Okay, there are going to be 2 groups of questions. The first one is very important, and this is the group of Hakirot. Okay, Hakirot are investigative questions which you deal with the where and the when. Where did it happen? When did it happen? The most questions, 6 of the questions are going to be with when did it happen? And one question is, where did it happen? We'll go through all the questions. Now, why is it so important to find out the where and the when? Okay, so in order for testimony, in order for witnesses, what they say, in order to be considered kosher testimony, it has to stand up to what's called hazama, right? Hazama, we know, is Adam Zomim, right? It has to be open to Adam Zomim. What's Adam Zomim? 2 witnesses come and they say, you guys, or one of you said that you saw the crime happen because you were in Florida, in Miami on this day, right, at this hour, but it can't be because you were with us in California at that time. We saw you in California with us. You couldn't have been in Florida. It couldn't have happened. Now, if you don't say where and when something happened, then no one can say, I saw you somewhere else. So in order for testimony to be kosher, it has to be able to be that Aiden can come and say that you guys weren't really there. It has to be hazoma, has to be able to happen. That's why it's very important to establish the when and the where. So what's the questions? How do we establish it? What are the 7 investigative questions we have to ask? So then the Dayanim will ask, Be'ezu Shavua, in which 7-year period did you see the crime? Okay, what does it mean, which 7-year period? So we know there's a Yovel, right? Yovel is every 50th year. So the way they would count the years was, they would count the Shemitah cycle, every 7 year being another cycle. So we're in Shemitah cycle 1, or we're in Shemitah cycle 2. Shemitah cycle 2 means you're in the second set of 7 years, of 7 before Yovel. So the second set of 7 years before Yovel. And there's 7 sets. And then there'll be Yovel. So the first question is, in which set of Shemitah years did this happen? Was it in the first set of years, the second set of years, third set of years, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh? And this is what you would know, where in the 50-year span are we dealing with? So the first thing is, in which set of Shemitah years are we talking about? Then the Ezu Shana. Now, in which year? So you told me you're in the second set of Shemitah. This crime happened. And now, which year of that? Which of those 7 years did it happen? The Ezu Chodesh. And which month during that year? Okay. Bekama B'Chodesh. On what day of the month? Was it the 20th, the 21st? What day of the month was it? Be'ezu Yom. What day of the week? Rashi says, what day of the week, right? This is all in note 6. If you tell me which year, which month, and which day of the month, I would be able to find out which day of the week it was. You just look at the calendar. Also, you have to take back. Then back in the day, they probably didn't have calendars the way we have, on our phones, on our walls, and stuff like that. And even if they did, Rashi says that sometimes you tell someone, the day of the month of the year, they're not going to know, was I with this guy in that day or I wasn't with that guy in that day. But if you tell him, Friday that week, I was with him, I remember him. Yeah, I was with him in the bakery shop all day or whatever it was. So it would remind people better, and they can come and do Hazama and say that person wasn't there that whole day. Be'ezer Shah, then you have to ask which hour, because he was with me in the bakery shop, but how long? Was he there only in the morning or in the night? Maybe he did see it, maybe he didn't see the crime that he says he claims he saw. And then the final question is the where. Be'ezer Makam, where did it happen? In which place did it happen? You need to know, because was he there or was he not there? Okay, so those are the 7 questions. Which set of Shemitah years? Which year in that set? What month in that set? What day in that month? What day of the week was it? What hour of the day was it? And where did it happen? Rabbi Yossi argues with the rabbi of the Mishnah, and Rabbi Yossi says 3 questions only. Be'ezer Yom, which day? Be'ezer Shah, which hour? Be'ezer Makom, and in which place? We'll have to understand the machloket of Rabbi Yossi and the Tanna Kamma later on in the Gemara. Not going to get to that today, but we will get to it. Now, that is the 7 Chakirot questions. All right, let's learn the next part. Now, before we get to the next part, I just want to. Okay, let's learn the next part, and the next part after that, and then we'll go into Machloket Rishonim over here. All right, let's see. Makirin atem oto. Next, after these 7 questions, they ask, did you recognize that person? Okay, I know the article has in brackets the victim, right? That's the way Rashi is learning. They ask, did you recognize the victim? What would be the importance of recognizing the victim? So Rashi says, maybe it was a guy. Okay, let's forget that. That's already Machlokes Rishonim. But anyway, why? Why is it important to know if he killed a guy or if he killed a Jew? Right, so you don't kill a Jew for killing a guy, but you do give him chayav mitzvah if he kills a Jew. So you have to know who the victim is. So that's why Rashi learns it as, did you recognize the victim? That is Rashi. However, the Lachamisha and the Rashash want to learn from the Rambam, that the Rambam said, when they ask him, did you recognize not the victim, but did you recognize the aggressor, the one who committed the crime? Okay, the criminal. Did you recognize the criminal? That's what the Rambam wants to learn. Although Rashi Pshat makes sense with a later Gemara that says, was the victim a guy or a Jew? That's a big change, right? In halacha, do you punish him how? Rambam never brings down that question. And the Rambam seems to say it means that you recognize the aggressor, the criminal. Make sure you have the right guy, or you're getting in trouble. Rabbeinu Chananel, another Rishon, Rabbeinu Chananel says, no, when it says Makir Atem Oto, it means both. It means both the victim and the ask, did you recognize the victim? Did you recognize the criminal? Did you recognize both? So that's the way the Rabbeinu Chananel learns that part of the Mishnah. Okay? So that's a very important question you have to ask, because again, if you don't know who it was, who got killed, who did the killing, what are you doing in this court? You have no court case, right? So you have to know that for sure. Hitartem boy, did you warn him? Right? Another very important halacha in Yahadut, in Judaism, we cannot punish someone in Beit Din unless they had hatra or hasra in the Ashkenazic pronunciation. Hasra is a warning. You have to tell the guy what you're about to do is an isser, and if you do it, you're going to have this and this penalty. So, was that hasra in place? Did you get that warning? Because you cannot do any punishment without it. Okay. Now, I want you just to focus on what I said over there, because this is we're gonna have to come back to these two questions in about a minute or two. Okay, we're gonna have to deal with a big focus Rishonim of how to understand these two, but that's the din.
And the warning has to be correct one.
Yes, the warning has to be correct, has to be for the right sin, has to be the right punishment, 100%. Now, if he's a chaver, if he's Talmud Chacham, sometimes we get away with saying that he doesn't need to have a warning because he should have known that it was an Isser. But yes, it has to be the right warning. Now, if the crime was Avodah Zarah, we kill for Avodah Zarah, right? We kill with stoning. Skila, it's a very big punishment. So someone worship with the Zara, and there's witnesses to it. So they asked the witnesses, after they asked the where and the when, the first 7 questions, they asked them, Es mi avid uvema avid. What idol did he worship, and how did he worship it? Okay, we have to make sure, we have to ascertain, what did he do? What did he do right? Did he didn't do right? We have to figure it out. Now, the Mishnah continues. Anyone who continues the questioning of bidikot, right? These are not chakirot. Chakirot were the first 7 questions the Mishnah brought, the where and the when, which you have to ask and you have to know when and where in order to make hazama. But these bidikot questions don't have a limit of 7. As many as you want, and the more questions you ask, because the more questions you ask, the more someone will trip up in the answering, and then and then you'll get to the truth that this person really didn't do it. So it's a way to really ascertain or to try to save someone, whoever it is. The more questions, mishubach. Some people, also believe this is what you do on Pesach Seder. You want to raise a mishubach, ask more and more and more questions. Now,
I was about to say that, only the purpose there is different.
Right? Very good. Now, the Mishnah continues, Masa Ovadak ben Zakkai. There was a story that happened with Ben Zakkai. Now, who's Ben Zakkai? Yochanan ben Zakkai. Why is the Mishnah call him Ben Zakkai? He's Yochanan ben Zakkai. He's Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. The Mishnah calls him Ben Zakkai because the story happened when he was a Talmud, when he was a young student, and he wasn't yet a Rebbe yet, a rabbi yet. This story happened. So the Mishnah later on, when they formalized the Mishnah and they put it down, they wrote it as Ben Zakkai to say it happened when he was a student. What happened? Someone murdered someone under a fig tree, and he asked a lot of Vidikot questions. And in order to, to find out what really happened. Now, what type of Vidika questions can you ask on the fig tree? So he asked them, what color was the fig? Was it green? Was it yellow? What color was it? What was their stem? Was it thick? Was it thin? Was it long? Was it short? And he asked them all these bidikot questions. These are supplementary questions. And you can ask as many as you want. And the Mishnah says, the more you ask, harezeh meshubach, that is very praiseworthy. Okay? You'll get to the more accuracy of the case. Now, the Mishnah says, ma bein chakirot livdikot. So what is the difference between chakirot and v'dikot? Chakirot were the 7 questions. What cycle of Shemitah? Which year in the Shemitah? What month? What day of the month? What day of the week it was? What hour it was? What place it was? What's the difference between those questions and my supplementary questions? The fig was yellow, green, thin stem, thick stem, long stem, a short stem. What are the difference between them? So the Gemara says, chakirot. If you're asking one of the 7 standard questions in order to establish the when and the where, and echai omer eini yudeya, and one of the witnesses say, even if one witness says, I do not know. They ask, what year was it in? I don't know. What month was it? Once you say, I don't know, you have nothing there. Because remember, you can't have hazama. You can't have someone come and saying, oh, he was with me somewhere else that day. And if you can't do that, then the testimony is not kosher. So echad omer eini yudeya. Someone says, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to one of the 7 questions. Edutan betela. The whole edut is thrown out. It's all batal. Bidikot. But if you ask him a supplementary question, you ask him, what color fig was it? Was it a thick stem or a thin stem, long stem, short stem? And he says, Omer, any day, I don't know. Or you ask both of them. and both of them are Romanian and Judean. They both say, I don't know. Edutan kayemet. Their edut stays. It's kayemet. We're still going to believe it. It happens. People forget supplementary information. And it's not shaykh to the hazama either. So therefore, even if the person says, I don't know, we continue to hold the testimony in place. However, echad chakiros, the echad bedikot, but when it comes to both chakirot and bedikot, bizman shemachishin ze'etzeh edutin betila. And it comes to either chakirot in the 7 questions, or it comes to any of the extra questions you want to ask. If there is a contradiction between the witnesses, remember you're asking them one after the other, right? One, you ask this question, then you bring in the other guy, and you ask the whole set of questions. So if they're contradicting in their answers, even if it's in the supplementary questions, then it all becomes betila. It all gets thrown out. Okay? Up until here, the Mishnah is very nice, but we have to stop for a moment and walk back to the 2 questions of the Mishnah that we had before, 40a1. Makirin atem oto. Did you recognize the victim? Right? And we said it makes a big difference. If you kill the guy, you don't get killed. If you kill a Jew, you do get chayam mita. Hitartim boy. If you did the warning, then you can go ahead with the case. And if you didn't, then you can't go ahead with the case. So now the question is for us, how do you classify these 2 questions? Is it a chakira or is it a bedika? Remember, chakira is very important. Those are the 7 questions that if you say, I don't know, then the whole, you have nothing doing. You have no case. So if you ask the guy, did he kill, was it him who killed, and did he kill a Jew or a guy? And he says, I don't know. Or if you tell him, was there a warning? He says, I don't know. You don't have a case. So is this also chakirot, or is it not chakirot? So Rashi says, and this is where I told you to stop before, don't read further in the Rashi. Rashi wants to say that, so going back to Makir Matem, he says, this is not chakiros questions. So if it's not chakiros questions, what is it? Bediko's questions? But Bediko's questions, the Mishnah said, then if you say, I don't know, it's okay. Right? I don't know, it stands if it's still a Bediko question. So how can you say it's like that? So they want to say, yeah, it's not a Chakira question, it's a Bedika question, but since it's part of the main testimony, Guf Ha'edut, so if you didn't say it right, it gets canceled out. Even though it's a Bedika, and usually Bedika, if you say I don't know, it's okay. But if these are Guf Ha'edut, they're the main body of the testimony, even though it's not a Chakira question. The Ran, on the other hand, the Ran wants to say, everyone agrees in the end, everyone agrees the same that you need to answer these questions right. The question is, how do you classify it? So Rashi says, it's not a Chakira. Mai said, it's a Bedika. Bedika, it's a special Bedika. It's a Guf Ha'edut Shebedika, therefore, if you say it wrong, you're not gonna have a court case. The Ran says, on the other hand, no, it's, since if you don't answer it right, if you say any idea, it's not gonna go further, then it has to be a Chakira. So the question on the Ran is, the Mishnah said there's only 7 chakiros, and now you're telling me there's another 2. So he says, similarly, he says, you're right. There are 7 main questions of chakiros, and then other guf ha'edut, anything that has to do with the main testimony, even though it's not one of the 7 questions, it has a status of a chakira. So he wants to classify it under a chakira. Now, the Meiri is brought down in the article. The Meiri brings down, I believe the article brings down, the Meiri brings down, there's another set. There's something called drishot. Okay, so that's the whole big note 11, kind of summarizing it for you. So the Meiri adds that there's a third category called drishot. In the end, everyone holds that you have to answer these 2 questions right. If they're not answered, if you say I don't know, the court case doesn't move. Question is, how do you classify it? Rashi classifies it at a bedika, but it's a guf habedika, and therefore you have to get it right. Ran says it's a chakira, but it's not one of the 7 chakiros because it's a guf ha'edut, but it's like a chakira, similarly the same thing. And the Meiri says, it's a whole different classification. It's a drisha, but you still have to get it right. Okay, fine. Any questions, or moving on?
Yes.
Yeah.
If the Hakirot are the primary questions and whether different commentaries classify the additional questions by different terms, why are additional supplemental questions on par with the Hakirot questions?
So that's
Because
what
the only
Rashi was saying.
supplemental.
Rashi was saying this Bedika question is on the level of a Chakira because it's Guf Ha'edut, meaning it's very important questions. You can't move the case without it. So therefore, even though it's not a Chakira, it's on a level like it, even though it's a Bedika. And the Ran says the other way around. He says it is a Chakira, but it's not a Chakira question. But he's both really much saying the same thing. It's not Chakiros. The question is, how do you classify it? Where do you put it in? Right?
So
I think
why is the classification important? If in any case you have to ask all of those questions with the Hakirot and the supplemental question, why just not say they're all a part of one classification under Hakirot?
oh, so why can't you say it's all in the Chakiros? So we're going to see that the Gemara is going to ask, where do you get Chakiros from? And it's going to say these 7 questions are Deoraita, that the Torah tells us we have to ask them. There are 7, only 7 questions that are Deoraita. Therefore, you can't classify them as full-fledged Chakirot. It's a Deoraita that we're going to learn. You have to ask 7. So that's
there is a difference. So there is a difference in the level of them.
It's not a Deoraita question. It's a question that's why they're classifying as Guf Ha'edut, the main body of the testimony, and they have to be asked. I think the easiest way out is the Meiri, right? Meiri gives a very nice way. It's called Drishos, and another category of questions that are very important. They're not Bedikos, because by Bedikos, if you say any Yudea, it doesn't matter. So it does matter in these 2 questions. Therefore, these are Drishot and not Bedikot and not Chakirot. So learning the Meiri's pshat is a very simple one.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Now that we did this, let's look further. Okay, we said if you made a mistake in the Chakiros, the questions that establish when and where it happened, and you either contradict it or you say you don't know, everything gets thrown out. We're going to see that's not necessarily always. Sometimes the Adam can contradict when something happened and it still sticks. Let's see. Echad Omer B'Shnayim B'Chodesh. One of the witnesses say it happened on the 2nd of the month. The Echad Omer B'Shlosh B'Chodesh. And one says it happened on the 3rd of the month. Edutan Kayemet. Their edut, their testimony stands, even though they have the mistake of a day. Why? Because this guy knows that last month they made it another day. Remember, back in the times of the Mikdash, we didn't have calendars. They added a day based on the witnesses when they came and they said they saw the new moon. So if they saw the moon a day late, that month had 30 days, whatever it was, it had an extra day. So if it had an extra day, Rosh Chodesh was the next day. So depending if you knew or not, you would know it's either the 2nd day of the month or the 3rd day of the month, right? Because any day, you guys didn't know that they added an extra day to the previous month. Does that remember Shloisha? Any day, okay, so that's the case. So that's where you can believe them. If one says the 2nd of the month, and one says the 3rd of the month, we believe them. Why? Because you say, this guy just didn't know that we added an extra day. That's why he's saying it's the 3rd. But that guy knew we did add an extra day to the previous month. Therefore, he's saying it's the 2nd. So their testimony is really true. They just didn't know what day of the month it was. However, say Omer B'Shloisha, the Echad Omer B'Chamisha. One says it happened on the 3rd day of the month, and one said it happened on the 5th day of the month. No, then that's not possible. You can have a 1 day off because of the 1 day extra before Rosh Chodesh, and 1 day extra to the month. You don't add 2 days extra to the month. So you can't have one person saying today is the 3rd, and it happened on the 3rd, and the one's going to say it happened on the 5th. That's already a big mistake. Edutan betzilah. Therefore, the edut is batel. That is a contradiction and not just a mistake in counting of the days of the month. Okay, moving on. If one says it happened in the 2nd hour of the day, okay, remember, they don't have clocks, they don't have watches, maybe they have sundials, and the way most people, and sundials are stationary, you're not walking around with sundial, right? So most people will know the time of the day by the position of the sun. Sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So depending where the sun is in the sky, you would figure out how much of the day has already passed. So someone says the crime happened 2 hours into the day. And once they happen in the third hour of the day, their edut stands. Why? Because between the second and third hour, it's very possible people make mistakes. You don't have a watch, right? A lot of times, imagine you don't have a watch, you don't have a phone, right? It's Yom Tov or Shabbat, whatever it is, and you're outside, you're in the park. You don't know how much time passed. Most people don't know how much time passed. And we can't, and we're not familiar with looking up to the sun to figure out what time of the day it is. So if you made a mistake, second hour, third hour, it makes sense. People make mistakes. Therefore, the Tun Kayemet, one thought it was a second hour day, one thought it was a third hour day, but really it was the same exact time. Someone says it was the third hour of the day, and someone says it was the fifth hour of the day. So you're talking about like over a 2 hour difference. So then, their edut is batel. That's what the Tanakama says. Who says no? Kayemet. People even make 2 hour mistakes. You don't know if it's 10, you don't know if it's 12, you don't know if it's 11, you don't know if it's 1. You just don't know. It's 2 hour difference is also something that people make mistakes on. But even according to Yehuda, someone said it happened in the fifth hour of the day, 11 o'clock. But and someone says it happened at 1 o'clock, right, in the seventh hour of the day, then their edut is batel, even though it's a 2 hour difference. Why? Because then everybody knows the position of the sun. Because until noon, the sun is still in the east. In afternoon, especially at 1 o'clock, the sun is no longer in the east. It's already starting its westward travel, and therefore you would know. Therefore, if someone looked up and he saw it in the east, and the other guy says, I saw it in the west, then what's it called? Then they know that they're not saying the same thing. There's a contradiction in their testimony. So we learned two things about ancient people. They were able to tell the time from the sun, and also they knew which way was north, south, east, and west. I don't know. Maybe some of you know it. I unless you give me a compass, I have no idea which way I'm standing. Like every year, even though I daven in the same shul, when it comes to shaking the Na'anuim of the lulav, I have to remember, where do we start from? Where's south? Where's north? Where's east? Where's west? You kind of we don't live our lives so much with with north, right? And they used to know where north was all the time, or where east was all the time. We don't live our lives that way. We live like, okay, where's 108th Street? You live based on the grid of the city. You know how to move around. But in the olden days, they would travel with north, east, west, and south. So today, if someone says, I saw the sun here, I saw the sun there, I don't know what would be. But anyway, we don't have a Sanhedrin, so we can't bring any capital punishment cases. But let's continue to learn the Mishnah. So you ask all these questions of the first witness. Then you bring the less prominent witness and you start asking him. If you realize that all their words are matching, there's no contradictions, then we could start the case. We start in the favor of the person who's on trial. What did we say in the last parak? We tell the guy, if you're innocent, you have nothing to worry about. Now, if one of the witnesses says, listen, I just said this guy did a crime, but I have a reason to get him off the hook. We already learned in last parak, the witness cannot say anything in favor of the criminal. He cannot be, because we have a pasuk that says he cannot. Or if there's one of the Talmidim. So he says, I found a reason to kill the guy. We keep both of them quiet. The witness cannot say something good. And the Talmud, a student, remember, in front of the Sanhedrin Katana, 23 judges, you had another 23 students sitting there. We learned that in the last parak. So none of those students can come up and say, oh, you have a reason for conviction. We keep them quiet. One of the students says, I have a reason to find him off the hook, to get him acquitted, to free him, make him potter. So we tell him, you have something good to say? Come up here. We're going to make you a dayan for the day, make you a judge for the day. Remember, he comes up, and then another student takes and everyone moves, and then they put a new student from the yeshiva on the bench, so there's still 23 students there. We learned that in one of the previous Mishnayot from the last parak. And this student sits there all day as a judge. If he really has something good to say, we listen to him. But if not, we don't listen to him. And even if the guy himself, the criminal himself, says, "Yesh li lama lama to me is good. I can explain for myself to get off the hook." We listen to him. As long as he has some substance to his words, meaning anyone who says they have a reason to get him off the hook, and we're not looking to kill people. That's not what Beit Din does. We're trying to find ways not to kill the guy in order to get to an accurate punishment. So if he says he has, we listen. If he has a good reason, we listen. If he doesn't have a good reason, we don't listen to. Now, if they find a reason to acquit him, pataruhu, they can acquit him that day. We already learned that in the last parak. Ve'im lav, and if they did not find a reason to acquit, and they're thinking to kill him, ma'avirin oto lemachar. Remember, you cannot finish it on that same day. You have to leave it to the next day. Now, what happens? Here we already learned that last mission. Now we're going to fill in the details. So what happens now? Zugot. The court goes on recess, but what happens? The 23 judges are to go home together in pairs, 2 or 3 of them together each. This way they can continue to discuss the case at home to see if they can find a reason to acquit him. So Mazdig and Zugot, they're not allowed to eat a lot that day. Instead of eating, they should be thinking about the case. They shouldn't be drinking wine all day, just so they can think clearly. In all day, all night, they deliberate, they talk about the case throughout the whole night. And in the morning, mashkimin, they get up early, and they come to Beit Din. And what happens? They restate what everybody said yesterday. Yesterday, I said the guy, he goes off, he's okay, he's potter, and I stay in my place. But Mechayev said, the one who said for conviction says, I argue for conviction, and I maintain my argue for conviction. But we learned the last Mishnah, and they say it again here. The person who said that I find him for conviction, he can change his argument for zechut. He can say, now I find an argument for zechut. The person who found the reason to acquit originally, and he cannot come now and change his reasoning for chova. And we mentioned in the last parak that's only during the deliberation that he can't change his argument for conviction. But when it comes to the vote, he could change based on his current conviction, his current beliefs. But he cannot, during the deliberation, change his opinion to others. That's what it says here. That was from Rav in the previous parak. So he cannot switch. If he's Melamed Zechut yesterday, he cannot come and switch it to teach him a reason for conviction. He can vote for conviction, but he cannot change his reason for conviction during the deliberation. Now, Ta'o B'Dover, he doesn't remember what he said, right? I don't know what I said yesterday. It happens. People don't know what they said 2 minutes ago, right? But these are Dayonim. They had a lot of cases, whatever it was. They don't remember. So what happens? Ta'o B'Dover, Shnei Seifrei Dayonim Maskirin. So there were 2 scribes. It was Machokas in the last parak. Was it 2 or 3? Looks like there's 2. Rambam holds there's 2. So 2 scribes that would write down what everyone said the day before, what they said and why they said, who said it, what they said, why they said it, and the reason for it. And then they would remind people if they needed it. Now, if now there are more people who are acquitting him, he's acquitting. They acquit him. If not, they take a vote. If people didn't switch over to acquittal, then they'll take a vote to see where they stand, right? Because it could be that someone switched to convict, but he cannot argue for conviction, so they have to take a vote to see if at least they have a vote for conviction. Now, how much is a vote? So we already learned on Daf Bet that when it comes to capital punishments, in order to acquit, you need a majority of 1. So you have 23, right? 23 total judges. You're going to need Shneim Aser Mizakin, 12 who say he is free to go, the Achad Aser Mechayevin, and 11 say he is Chayev. Zakai, he goes free because all you need is a majority of 1 to acquit him, to make him free. But to Mechayev him, we learned from Sukkim, we don't want to go with the majority to go bad, so it means you need to have a majority of 2 to kill him. Shneim Aser Mechayevin, you have 12 who said he's chayav, and 11 who said he's good, he's okay, you can't do anything about it. You're at a stalemate because you don't have a majority of 2. to convict, and you don't have a majority of one to acquit. You don't have a majority of one to free. So you have nothing right now. But if you have 11 and 11, and one says, I don't know. So you have 11 judges say Chayav, 11 judges says Potter, and one judge says, I don't know. But even more, even if you have 22 who say he should go free, or 22 who says you should kill him, and the 23rd guy says, I don't know, you have nothing. Yosifu hadayonim. You have to bring on more judges. Okay, what's going on? If I have 22, even if you guys said if I said 22 for free, everyone's 22 for acquittal, 22 to let this guy go. If the guy said he's chayav, we don't listen to him. Of course he's going to go free. So now that he says, I don't know, why doesn't he go free? Okay, so the reason is, because remember, you cannot judge a court case, a capital punishment case, without 23 judges. And if the guy says, I don't know, then he's not a judge. That's what Rashi says. He's not a judge. You need 23 judges who can give sack, who can say what the din is. He's not saying what the law is, so he's not a judge. So, and you have only 22 judges on the courts. So therefore, nothing moves. Either you have 22 who agree, and one says, I don't know, you don't have a court of 23. Therefore, you have to add more judges on. How many you have to add on? The Mishnah is going to say you always add on 2. You always add 2 until 71. The Ran says that's not necessarily the case if it's 22 to one guy saying, I don't know. The Ran says all you have to do is add 1. The Rambam does not bring them down la halacha, so it seems the halacha is that you would have to add 2 anytime you have to add on. Witnesses. So if you had our original case, 12 saying chayav and 11 saying mizakin, 11 saying he's free, you add on 2 more. So now you're up to 25 judges. So depending on what they say, you can go up to 71. Why? Because you have the 2 judges, and one says chayav, so now you're 13. The other one says potter, now you're up to 12. So you're 13, 12. You still don't have two-person majority. You add another 2. And again, it happens. Now you have 14 to 13. You add another 2. You have 15 to 14. And you can keep going until you get to 71 judges. Why up to 71 judges? Because that's the Sanhedrin Haggadah. Sanhedrin Haggadah only has 71 judges. You cannot have a bigger Sanhedrin than the Sanhedrin Haggadah. The Sanhedrin Gedolah is 71. So therefore, a Sanhedrin Katana can only go up to 71. So you can add up to 71. Who do you add from? Remember, you add from the students. You're going to bring up the students, and then you're going to make them judges until you get up to 71. Now, what happened? Shloishem v'shisha mezakin. You have 36 who say he is to go free. Or shloishem v'chamisha mechayvim. 35 say kill him. So here you have a majority of 1. Zakai, right? So he can go free. Now, what happens the other way? Shloishem v'shisha mechayvim. 36 say he is to be killed. Shloishem v'chamisha mezakin, and 35 saying he is to be going free. So 36 saying chayav, 35 saying going free. So you only have a majority of 1. You need a majority of 2 to convict. But you can't have any more people added because you already have 36 and 35. You're at 71. So you're at a stalemate. Well, what happens now? So at this point, done in elu keneged elu, you let them debate one another on ad sheyira echad min chayavim divrei Zakin, until one of the people, more than one, you're going to need 2 of the people from the conviction to move over to the acquittal side, and then you could free him. The Rishonim all say that that's lav dafka. It could go the other way as well. It can go that you can move one guy from the acquittal side to the conviction side, and now you have a 2-person majority, and that will also end the case. The Mishnah wanted to end up on a nice note, so it said if you can switch 2 people's minds to go to the mazakin side, the good side, the side of favor, then that would be. So at 71, you can't add any more judges, and instead they will have to continue to debate until they change some people's minds one way or the other. Okay, that was the Mishnah. It's a nice long Mishnah, exciting Mishnah, very detailed Mishnah. Now we're going to come to the Gemara. Okay, we might run a little over time, just because I want to finish the sugya. Yes, Efraim.
If the young student who wanted to find a reason to acquit the guy, right?
Yeah,
They said that they put him up and then they listen to him, right?
yeah, he stays on the bed
What
all day. Yeah,
what if his rationale is not adequate? Do they kick him out from there? Is the
I'm not
only
sure. The Mishnah
is the
says if he had
only
something good to say, we listen to him.
right,
So
but you never said there isn't anything good to hear. Then what happens?
I don't know. The Mishnah didn't say. I'm not sure.
Okay, and the question that
Um,
that we were focusing on earlier, these are only the questions to the edim, right? Not to the guy himself,
right. The questions are to the Adam only.
right?
Yeah, Adam only. Adam only. We don't ask the guy anything, and we don't care even if he says he did it. We don't listen to him.
Okay, the other thing, two more questions.
Yeah.
Why do we tell them if they have so many cases throughout the day? Why do we tell them go home and elaborate on this case throughout the day to make a decision?
Because we want them to have a very clear thought process before they kill somebody. Make sure that they're not missing anything.
So they had to make a decision as fast as possible.
Yes, we don't want to wait time. We're not allowed to wait time. We have to
Okay,
kill the guy.
okay. If I and you we went home and you were able to convince me to convict the guy, why
Uh,
can't I give my reasoning? Why is it just enough just to say no, I'm guilty
right. So
without
we
giving
learned that.
permission?
We learned that in the last parak. That was the halacha that you cannot give a reason for conviction once you said acquittal. I don't remember if it's based on Sukkah, but that was the halacha that we learned. You could vote that way, but you cannot give you can't reason that way. That's just the halacha like that.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So now the Gemara is not very hard, but you have to pay attention to these first three psukim. And this is going to set up the whole Gemara for the next couple of pages over here. So we said that there's 7 Chakira questions, and we alluded to it when Ephraim asked a good question. We said it might be Doraita. So this is where we're getting it from. The Gemara is asking, how do we know that there's 7 investigative questions? Where did the Chacham get this? Where did the Tanakhama get this? In the Mishnah that has 7 investigative questions. Where does it come from? So we're going to have 3 psukim. The first pasuk is going to deal with the Ir Hanidachat. This is the city that went wayward. The whole city did a Zara. We killed them all out. Right? You have to investigate and then we kill them. Then we have a case of a Zara. Someone says someone did a Zara. You have to make sure you did a Zara, then you kill them. And another case, witnesses who were Adam Zayramim. They said these people were with me somewhere else, and then I found that they weren't really with them somewhere else, right? And they were lying. So we have to investigate well, and we kill them. And all those psukim, it says you have to ask questions. Let's take a look. The first one, Amar Yehuda. How do we know that there's 7? The Amar Krah. Vidarashta, Vichakarta, Vishalta, Hated. Okay? Now I want you to look at this pasuk, and I want you to break it up, put 3 commas. Vidarashta, comma, Vichakarta, comma, and then the words Vishalta, Hated, that's another group. That is the first 3 questions. Vidarashta means you shall inquire. Vichakarta, you should question. And Vishalta, Hated, ask thoroughly. Right? Don't separate Vishalta and Hated. But B'sha'alta Hativ is one more form of question. That's what Rashi said. B'sha'alta is not a question on its own, but rather with the word Hativ. So there you have 3 questions. Then by Avodah Zarah, the Omer, it says the Hugadlacham, they'll tell you B'shamata, and you'll listen. V'darashta, comma. V'darashta is one more question, and Hativ means thoroughly. That's another question. V'darashta and Hativ. They up to 5. The Omer, and then it says by the Adam Zargamim, Darshu, and you're going to inquire, Hashoftim, the judges will inquire. So Darshu, that's another question, put a comma after that. Hashoftim Hativ, again, the word Hativ thoroughly is another question. So you have 3, 2, and 2. You have your 7. Okay? That's the way Rabbi Yehuda wants to learn that there are 7 questions that you have to ask. So far, so good? Okay. The Ema, you should just know that I was able to do this better after saying the shir yesterday. I had 10 questions. how it broke into 7. I realized I didn't say it over well yesterday, so today I changed the way I said it. I also changed something in the Mishnah the way I said it as well to clear it up easier. Okay, so ve'ema chada chada k'dichtiva. The Gemara now says, but 1 second, why are you saying all 7 for all capital punishment cases? No, 3 for Irhani Dachat, 2 for Avodah Zarah, and 2 for Meidim Zayimim. Every case, you ask them out the questions the psukim in that case say to do. Why are we bunching them all up? Dim Kane, Lichtavinu Rachmana B'chada. If you want to say everywhere, ask 7. So the Torah should have written it in one place 7, all 7, and then I would know for everything else. The fact that it says 3 there, 2 there, 2 there, then that's what you should do. 3 there, 2 there, and 2 there. Why are you putting it all together as 7? The Gemara said, yeah, but kivan nikula b'hada hadad ktiva mahadada yalfe. Since the requirement is written equally, it's written the same way, and it's instructed about each one to do the same thing. Since they talk about each other, it's as if it was written all together. You're saying each one should be done separately because it's separately, but yeah, it is written separately, but it's written very similar, and it's written like in the same type of idea. Therefore, you know what? Put them all together. So that's the Gemara's answer. The Gemara's answer is it's similar, so it's together, even though it's separate. Okay. The Gemara says no, it's not similar. The cases are not similar. You can't compare the cases. Each case is different than the other case. Simon, Palit, Sayav, Hasra. You have these is a simon of the 3 differences. What's the differences? Take a look. Irhani Dacha, we're on 40b1 on the right column. Irhani Dacha, Lohanach Tarti Loidan. And Irhani Dacha is not like the other 2, right? Shekaim Mamonan Palit. When it comes to Avodah Zarah, or when it comes to Adam Zalman, we don't destroy the money that belongs to those people. But when it comes to Irhani Dachat, we do have to destroy the property and money that belongs to the people in the Irhani Dachat. So Irhani Dachat is more chomer. You destroy the property and the money. So it can't be compared to those other 2. Avodah Zarah, also different. Avodah Zarah lahanach tarti lo'damya. It's not comparable. Shekain b'sayif, because in these 2 cases, in Irhani Dachat and Adam Zayimim, we kill them with a sword. We don't kill them with skila. You don't kill them with stoning, but you do kill the guy who did Avodah Zarah with stoning. So, and stoning is much more chomer than the sword. Further, Adam Zayimim lahanach tarti lo'damya. But Adam Zayimim also are not compared to these other 2 cases. She came tricham hatra because the other 2 cases, Irhani Dachat, the guy who did Avodah Zarah, you have to give them a warning first. But Adam Zayimim, you don't tell them, oh, if you're going to make them Adam Zayimim and you're found to be false, we're going to kill you instead. We don't say that. We don't give them a warning. So there's no hatkah, there's no warning by them. So therefore, it's more chomer than the others. So you cannot tell me they're all similar and learn all 7 from them because they're not similar at all. Gemara says you're right. They're not similar, but you still learn them together. Why? We have Gzer Shavah. We have a linkage of words in the psukim to tell us to put it together. The word hated. The word hated is extra in the psukim. It doesn't have to say hated. Since it doesn't have to say hated, they're extra. Let's take a look. We'll see what it could have said instead. Let's see. And it's open for Gzer Shavah. Because if it wasn't open to use for Gzer Shavah, then you couldn't use it. So it's open. It is open. Let's see how it is open. Let's see. Indeed, it's open. Why? Okay, go back 1 page to 48.4. You have the 2 psukim by Avodah Zarah and Eidu Zayimim. It says v'darshu, right, or v'darashta hativ, v'darshu shaitim hativ. Instead of saying the word hativ, it could have said v'darashta v'chakarta or v'darshu v'chakru. Could have used the word chakru, which means questions, instead of using the word hativ, which means thoroughly, right? Now the Havel in the Michtav v'darshu v'chakru. V'shani kar v'diburei v'hativ, and the Torah instead uses the word hativ thoroughly instead of the word v'chakru, which means question. Shma'ina le'afnuye. So you see, the Torah did it on purpose to open it for Gzera Shava. Mar said, okay. It's open for Gzera Shava. But still, it's only open from one side. Why? Because those two psukim that I told you from the Zayir made in Zayimim, there it could have said v'derashta v'chakarta. It could have written what you wanted to write. V'derashta v'chakarta, v'darsha v'chakru. But the first pasuk back in 48:4, where it says v'derashta v'chakarta v'shalta hated, it already used the word v'chakarta. And there all of it is already written. The chakarta is already written. So hated means you have to ask another question, right? So you couldn't say another v'chakarta. You couldn't say another v'darashta. You couldn't. You already have it. So it had to say hated. So hated is not open. It's not like it could have said v'chakarta. It had to say hated. This tells you have to ask another question. So haktiva kula. The Gemara says yes and no. Yeah, it's still open. Why? You could have written a double lashon. You could have used the same word twice. Could have said darash tidrash. And sometimes the Torah does that. It uses a double lashon places, a double language. Oh chakar tachkar. Could have used question, like twice say the same thing. Shanikra, and Torah does that many times. The Shanikra, the Torah specifically changed it b'dugureya and it said behativ. Shmamina lafnuye. So you see, it's open for the Gzera Shava. So somehow now, Hativ is open for Gzera Shava, because it didn't have to say that. And the two psukim said it could have said the Chakarta. And Aaron Hidachat, it could have said Darshu, Darashta, Chakru, Chakarta, could have used a double lashon. Chakar, Tafkar, Darash, Tidrash. And since it didn't, and they used the word Hativ, telling us it's open for a Gzer Shava, that everywhere you have to ask 7. Okay, now, how do I know that? How do I know I use it everywhere else? Okay, I know these cases are linked. The Gzer Shava links three cases, but how do I know everywhere else? So atu nechaknikin b'kal v'chomer. We know to use it in every other capital punishment case from a kal v'chomer. What do we know? Minaskalin u'minheragin. Because you have to punish them with stoning, and you punish them with beheading, right? And those punishments for Avodah Zarah is stoning, and the punishment for the other two were beheading with a sword. Ba'atu nisrafin mikal v'chomer miniskalim. Now nisrafin shreifa we can learn from mikal v'chomer of skila, because the shreifa is less than skila, and therefore, if by skila you have by stoning you have to ask all 7, then you have to ask it by burning, which is a lesser case. Yeah, it'll be kal v'chomer. So Gemara says, yes, true. Hadichel Rabbana. That's true according to the Rabbana. To Amrei skila chamura, who says stoning is the most powerful punishment. El Rabbi Shimon Amrei shreifa chamura. But according to Rabbi Shimon, who says shreifa is more chamar, ma itil memar. Then what can you say? According to Rabbi Shimon, shreifa is stronger punishment than skila, than stoning. So if it's a stronger punishment than stoning, then you can't learn stoning to shreifa. So how do you know by shreifa, by burning questions, by burning cases, you would have to ask the 7 chakiros? Now you're going to learn another whole loop shot. Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, those two psukim, 13:15 and 17:14 in Devarim. So which psukim were those? The Ir Hanidachat and the Avodah Zarah. It says over there that you have to find out if it's true. V'hineh emet nachon. V'hineh emet nachon. It says in both psukim. The Gemara says the word emet, truth, and nachon, right, is another 2 words to tell me chakira questions. So now you have additional 4. So you had 7 plus 4, you have 11. Now you have 11 terms that indicate questions. Sheva l'sheva chakiros. 7 are for the 7 actual questions. And dal tilat l'gzer shava. And 3 we use for gzer shava, right? 3 you're going to use for gzer shava, so you have the 10. Pashal chada. We have 1 more. The Rabbi Shimon la'atu nisrafin. It goes according to Rabbi Shimon. So that last one that's extra, the 11th, is used for Rabbi Shimon to tell us by burning cases, you also ask questions. The Rabbanon, what about the Rabbanon? They already learned the Sreifa from Skila, because Skila is more chamer, more stronger in stoning than burning. The Rabbanon, Miltali, ought to become a chamer, Torah, sometimes the Torah will write something that can be learned from a Kabul chamer, the Torah will write it straight up. So nothing to get excited about. So, may God the Rabbi says, what are you talking about? Maybe you're saying you have 11, and one of them, and 3 of them are to be used for Gzeir Shava, and you're left with 8. Maybe instead of saying the 8 is for Sreifa, maybe saying the 8 is to say you have to ask 8 questions, not 7. Mara says, can there even be 8 questions? What would be the 8th question? So Alma, he says, why not? You can ask what part of the hour. Was it in the beginning of the hour, at the end of the hour? And we had such a braita that said you ask 8 questions. So Gemara says, this is okay according to Abaye that a person doesn't mistake at time at all. But according to this version, Rabbi Meir said a person does make somewhat of a mistake. Then it's okay to ask what part of the hour. That a person makes a mistake in a half hour. That says that a person make even much greater mistakes in time, like we learned in our Mishnah. People can make 2-3 hours of mistakes, right? So how can you ask what part of the hour? People make mistakes with more than an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and we said that's okay. So now you're telling me ask what part of the hour? That cannot be the question. Says, you know what? To ask what part of the Yovel cycle was it? Gemara says, what do you mean? That was the first question. What set of Shemitah years are we in the Yovel? Rather, we ask, which Yovel was it? Is it the first Yovel since we came into Eretz Yisrael? Is it the second Yovel since we came into Eretz Yisrael? Which one is it? The Idach, and the other one says, once you say which cycle you are in the Shemitah year, you don't have to ask which set of Yovel you are in. So, Lamaisa comes in that according to Rishon, somehow you have 11, and then 3 are for the Gzeir Shava, and the 8th one is for the Sreifa. According to the Chachamim, you have 7 from the 7 questions. Heitiv is included in the questions, and is also used for Gzeir Shava. And it seems from the Chachamim that the 7 are somewhat of a Doraita type of questions, and it's only 7 and not 8. This is where we'll get up to for today. Baruch Hashem, we managed to finish. Yesterday, I wasn't able to finish with the class over there, but we got to where I wanted to get. All right. Any questions? Take it off record. Take it at this time.